Okay, class, we're going to take a look at how to find an inverse function for some trigonometric function. In this case, it's going to be f of x is equal to 2 times the sine of x minus 1. Okay, so first of all, when we find inverses, remember we exchange x's and y's. So we have to think of f of x as y. So I'm just going to rewrite this as y equals 2 sine x minus 1. Okay, and now to find the inverse, I'm going to replace all y's with x's and all x's with y's. So x equals 2 sine y minus 1 is what we'll begin with. And now we have to solve for the y that we created. Okay, so we want to isolate the term and then we'll take the inverse sign. So I'll just add this one over here and we got x plus 1 equals 2 sine y. And we'll divide by 2. Okay, so we're getting closer here. X plus 1 over 2 is equal to the sine of y. Okay, so I'm just going to come up here and write this in the other order. I'm going to put sine of y equals x plus 1 over 2. Okay, now remember the inverse of a function for any function f of f inverse. So if I take f inverse of f of x as well, both of those simplify to x if these are inverse functions. So I'm going to take the inverse sign on both sides of this equation. So the inverse sine of the sine of y equals the inverse sine of x plus 1 over 2. Now, because of this, these are inverses. That means that the y is just going to pop out here. So we've found the inverse of our original function. So now we can take this y and rename it f inverse. Okay, but it also asks us to find the range of f and the domain and range of f inverse. Okay, so since these are inverses, the domain here of f of x becomes the range of f inverse. So okay, so since this was the domain of f, it must be the range of f inverse. So what's the range of f? F is equal to 2 sine x minus 1. So we can think of this two ways. We know that the domain of the inverse sign is between -1 and 1. So this expression inside the inverse sign has to be between -1 and 1. So we're going to put it there. Okay, and if I multiply both sides or all three locations by 2, we can isolate x in the middle. Okay, so that becomes a -2 less than or equal to x plus 1 less than or equal to 2. Okay, now all we have to do is subtract the 1 here. So if I have -2 less than or equal to x plus 1 less than or equal to 2, and we'll subtract 1 everywhere. So -3 is less than or equal to x, it's less than or equal to 1. Okay, so this is going to be the domain of f inverse, but it's also the range of f. Okay, another way we could have found the range of f before we got started, because this amplitude is 2, so that takes our sign, instead of the range being -1 to 1, the amplitude makes it from -2 to 2. And then we're subtracting 1 from each result, so that -1 subtracted from both ends here would also give us -3 and 1. Okay, now we're going to look at solving a simple equation here involving inverse trigonometric functions. So this particular equation says that 3 times the inverse sine of x is equal to pi. So if I divide both sides by 3, so we're starting out with this. And we'll divide both sides by 3 and isolate the inverse sine part. Okay, so the inverse sine of x equal to pi over 3. Okay, and our definition of inverse sine, y equals the inverse sine of x if and only if x is equal to the sine of y. Okay, so we're going to say this is like our y, and this is our sine, y equals sine inverse x. So here we get to say x is equal to sine pi over 3. And the sine of pi over 3 is the square root of 3 over 2. So that's our solution.